and let's go. So we were talking last time about the beginning of, actually the introduction to Sefer Yetzirah, written by Shmuel Luria, one of the, I think he was one of the disciples of Arizal. And he was talking about Abraham, and he was talking about tree, right? He referred to Sefer Yetzirah as tree, and he said that Abraham planted this book, planted this tree. Where did we start? Okay, so let's start from here. And he says that in the shadow of this tree, everybody who wants to enter and to find the rest under the wings of Hashem, as the sages refer to the verse "V'etanefesh asher asu b'Haran," and the soul that they made in Haran, referring to Abraham and Sarah. And we learn from here, sages say, "Shechnisan tachat kanfei Shechina," that he brought them under the wings of divine presence of Hashem. So it also was like influence of book of Yetzirah, Sefer Yetzirah, v'yizku ad korat ha'amim mipirya. And everybody who tastes the fruit from this tree will have eternal life, because it will reveal the unity of God in the world. Because Abraham sacrificed himself for Hashem's sake in Ur Kasdim. And the fruits of this tree are good for eyes to see, through it in greatness of God. So it allows people to see how Hashem shines through all the creatures in the world, whether it's space, time, or nefesh, or soul, or structures. Nefesh I would translate today, or like now, in this instant, as a structure, like sophisticated structure of a being. Because, like, say, space, it has some kind of, it's like a raw material, both space and time. But nefesh, soul, yeah, or also it's like body, soul, body, mind, soul, unity. It's a structure that is present in space and in time and acts in these instances. And he says that all the creatures, they are sealed with 32 paths of wisdom and 22 letters. And all of them say, like, for one and only purpose, to say that Hashem Echad, Hashem Echad, that God is one and His name is one. And with the help of the light of this book, all the darkness of the previous period, which is called Toho, is chased away. So we know that the Midrash says that this world is programmed to exist for 6,000 years, and like first 2,000 years, it's time of toho, of chaos. All right, 2,000 years. Yeah. So according to our chronology, Avram was born in the year 1948. Um, and then when he became 52, so in the year 2000, he like that's when he made all this discovery, and when it is written with Nefesh Asher Asu B'Charan that he influenced people, he made the souls in Haran. So it's exactly 2,000 years, and with the help of this book, Sefer Yetzirah, he was able to eliminate the darkness of Toho, of chaos, and then, so then souls were able to look at the world from a new perspective. So I called Or Chadash, new light in the souls. And that's why it's called Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation. And it's not only because it talks about mysteries of formation of the world, but also it is its purpose. Because through this book, a person who deals with it, who learns it, who studies it, he creates pure heart and new spirit to know God. All right, so from here we learn something very important. While we learn the material of book Sefer Yetzirah, book of formation, we form ourselves. We shape ourselves into different beings. We basically undergo, if it is possible to say, almost the same transformation that Avram underwent. Yeah. It looks like, it's very hard to say what he did because, when we say what he did, we actually refer to this paradigm in which we live that distinguishes between to do and to be. All right? So in Western world especially, the question of to do takes a very central space, central place. What to do, and then there is an action. A person does a certain action, and there is a result, right? And the result is usually something, the outcome of the action, in terms of how to say it, before the action is done, it's not done. There is no result. Only when the action is finished, we have the result. And in this sense, it's so almost like magic. You do something and then something appears. Oh, I think that this understanding of the world evolved when we detached ourselves from nature. Because in nature, it's not like this. In nature, you work, you plow, you put seeds in the ground, you then you work a lot on the ground, and it grows slowly, right? Yes, there is a harvest at the end, but even at the end, you harvest not everything in one shot. You do it, slow. one thing at a time. So it's more like you like there is a certain mood of actions, or way of actions, course of actions that that allows you to evolve. Let me put it this way, meaning that while you do this, you change immediately. I mean, as a straight consequence of your learning it, and you don't even feel it. There's no way, like there is no something that you can separate from yourself and say, here, this is my result. However, you can like just look back at your life and you see, oh, it changed me a lot. It's not like what did he do, but it's rather like what the proper way of like shaping. I mean, we need to. Another meaning that comes from it that we need to have in mind that this information changes us, it shapes us. Okay. So now we continue with the text. And that's why Avram was a purpose of the creation, and it's him that about him said, Yehi or v'yehi or, let there be light, and there was light. So this verse about the light is about Avram. He shone through darkness of Tohu, through darkness of ignorance and chaos, and was able to refute the chaos, the Tohu. It was like kind of strange time, you know. Everything was going, and like, you know, when you think about like all the generations from Adam to Abraham, it was like constant ruining of the world. It was almost destroyed during the flood, and then it was all the separation of the languages. So the world was going and becoming more and more like dark place, if you wish. So then Avram came with the idea that can unite, that gives a certain direction, that gives an opportunity and ability to shape the world to the good. Okay? Hello? Okay. So we continue. So Abraham was alone. I mean, he became very, like he reached certain integrity that we can call him echad, one. And therefore, all his words are also representing a certain unity. So, which meaning that when you learn Sefer Yetzirah, and I can definitely testify, it's very to to put your finger on something and say, okay, this is like separate from all the rest. Now you feel that everything is somehow connected with all the rest. However, it's like a live creature almost. sometimes elusive, but nevertheless very alive. And this is like okay. Now the text itself. The text itself. So the integrity of Avram came into like a manifestation even through the integrity of this text, despite the fact, that we have four major different versions of the book. However, it's like how to say it? Like, it somehow doesn't bother anybody. It's because it's this kind of integrity that surpasses this um, this unclearness in regards to which version is a better one. And so he goes and explains, "Uki kola sefer banu meshachna." So, and this integrity we can see because the whole book is built and like intentionally built. Achar Yesod Pidnat Even Harasha. So all the book is built basically on the first Mishnah, on the first like piece of text, on the first portion. That like everything else comes from this Mishnah, and talks about 32 paths of wisdom, that there are 10 sfirot and 22 letters, and then 3 letters of Aleph and Shin, 7 letters, doubled letters, or folded letters, and the 12 simple, or I would say developed letters. And in this instance, Vilna Gaon points out that the whole Torah is built on the same principle, that everything is included in the first verse. Okay, so now we're talking about the structure of the book. It has 6 chapters. In the first chapter, the notion of 10 sfirot is dealt with, and what other like parts we can distinguish in sfirot, and he said there are 14 mishnayot. And the way of the book, and all the commentators emphasize it, that every next piece of information like explains what is written before it. So it's like, so it says something, then it sends something else to explain it, then it sends something else to explain the explanation. It goes further. Okay, second chapter talks about 22 letters in totality, and they're like, what can we say about the alphabet that is built out of 22 letters, and it has 6 mishnayot. Okay, so together we have 20 already. Third chapter talks about 3 letters, Aleph, Mem, Shin, and this chapter is divided into 9 mishnayos, so we have 29. Fourth chapter talks about 7 letters that are called in Hebrew kfulot, and in many books it's translated as double letters, but I also translate it as folded letters. that's why, like, when you fold a piece of paper, then you have like two pieces. They're connected, like in essence the same piece of paper, but you can see two different pieces of paper. I mean, split is something that separates them. Fold, if you fold them, you still do not separate them. Okay. So it has 16 Mishnayot. So 29 and 16 will be 45. Fifth chapter talks about 12 simple letters, or like straight, when you unfolded letters. And it contains 10 Mishnayot, so 55. And the sixth chapter, it's some kind of, summary of all previous material, how everything connects to everything. As we know that number 6 in general in Jewish tradition is a number that connects and ties everything together. Like Yesod in Sfirot that connects all previous Sfirot together. And it has 7 Mishnayot, so altogether 62. And then he explains that in different versions we have different amount of Mishnayot in each chapter. And he also notes that there is a book which is called Chesed LeAvraham, Kindness of Avram, and he wrote that altogether in the Sefer Yetzirah there are 60 Mishnayot, and it corresponds to 60 tractates of Mishnah. One moment, I need to open the door. Sorry. Okay, we can continue. All right. And also in the same Sefer, Chesed Avram, Kindness to Avram, when he talks about number of Mishnayot in the Sefer Yetzirah, he talks that they correspond also to all the letters of priestly blessing, Birkat Kohanim, that also contains of 60 letters. And he says that in the last Mishnah of this book, finally appears the name Avram, like to put a small evidence who wrote the book. All right. So he continues and says, so because this book is so ancient and he goes back in many centuries, it was copied during these years by many different people, and that's why there are differences in its versions and in its orders. And after that, also people who were printing the book, they also tried to change it and added many confusion. Some made it shorter, some made it longer. So it is almost impossible to find the true version, original version, without any, distortions. So Vilna Gaon, in his introduction to other Kabbalistic book, writes that he spent a lot of efforts, and it was very hard effort to find the straight version of this book. And he had he did all very scientific work. He had 10 different versions, and from 10, yes, he had Vilna Gaon had 10 different versions of this book, and um, he was he figured out from them the one that he made as he claims the most right version. At least he wrote his commentary in accordance to that version that he created. Oh, basically he said that the version of Arizal was the most right one. So, yes. According to Arizal and Vilna Gaon. Yes. Yes. Then he said that when some people printed it, so they put different version, and they put the commentary of haGra of Vilna Gaon next to this version. Then people couldn't find, didn't make any sense. And also, they edited some of his words, and it added another confusion. Okay, so he says that now the time has come, and he's going to print the right version. Okay. Okay, and then he says all the acknowledgments. I want to thank to this and to that. All right, we need tefillah, and I am a prayer and fear. Oh no, Yira'eh v'yiratzeh lefanav. So I pray that Hashem will see and will be according to His desire. That everything is right what I did. Okay, so by that we finished the introduction of Shmuel Luria. All right. And we're going straight to the Sefer Yetzirah, first chapter, Mishnah Aleph, first Mishnah. How it's written in this language. ב-32 נתיבות פלאות חוכמה, חקק יודקי הוויה צבקות אלוקי ישראל, אלוקים חיים ומלך עולם, אל שדי רחום וחנון, רם ונישא שוכן עד, וקדוש שמו, מרום וקדוש הוא, וברא את עולמו ב3 ספרים, בספר וספר וסיפור. So, that's the translation. In 32, path of amazing path of wisdom. So now then comes the word hakak. And let me see, I think that Eric Kaplan also translates this version. So he says engraved. Engraved. What is the meaning of the word engraved in English? Engraved. Okay, so you think of it about like something very hard, right? Like very hard stone, and then you need to put a lot of pressure in order to, yeah, to write something on it. Correct? Yeah, sure. I don't know. Because when I translated into Russian, let's say выгравировать, it's totally different meanings. So let me just check the word engraved. Okay. Engraved. Cut or carve on the surface of a hard object. Yeah. Cut or carve a text or design on such an object. Cut the design as lines on a metal plate for printing. Yes, so it's like basically on a hard surface. And there's like a longer tradition probably of translating it this way. However, I think of Avram as he lived in the society that used cuneiforms and clay tablets, right? And in that time, Sumerians and Akkadians and all these guys, they used clay tablets and they used cuneiforms to write things down. Are you familiar with what I'm talking? Cuneiforms. Cuneiforms. Clinopis. So they used like clay tablets, and then they took like some kind of reed, and they would not engrave, they would like press into the clay this reed, and they will form different signs with it, right? So the word hakak much more, it's fitting much more to this understanding. Like it's something something soft, then you put some like signs into it, and then it hardens. Okay, so it could be different understandings of this word, and it's like change perspective. Okay, then so we said that in 32, this amazing path of wisdom, hakak, like I don't know, wrote, like pressed, and then he brings few names of Hashem, Yud K, like two letters Yud and Hey, next Yud Hey Vav Hey, next Tzvaot, next Elohei Yisrael, God of Israel, next Elohim Chaim, living God, next Melech Olam and King of the world, El, the Mighty One, Shaddai, that said toward enough, Rachum, merciful, Chanun, and like forgiving, Ram, very elevated, Nisa, and like also some kind of very high, Shochenad, like present forever, and Shochen, it's also like quite problematic word. It gives me a lot of troubles. Only to me. Like people usually translate it like dwelling in eternity. Yeah, that's what Ari Kaplan translates, dwelling in eternity, Shachan Ad. But then, recently I developed an approach to understanding the word Shekhinah as actually the sound presence of God. So like when we pray and we learn Torah and like we read Torah, we talk about Torah, like commandments, about like community, Jewish community, Judaism. It's like it creates sound, and this sound is actually the presence of God. Yeah, so like it is very much within Judaism, and all the notion that God created the world with saying, and like the all the and there's like Perek Shira, the very famous small book. Not only animals, like basically all the creatures are saying some verses, praising God, singing to God, and like the way that we celebrate Torah, right? We read Torah, actually learn Torah. We say blessings, right? So we want to make God audible because, like, this is, in my opinion, this is Shekhinah. So we will be reading this week Parashat Truma, and it's written, "Nasuli Mikdash Shachanti Beducham," and they will make for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in their midst. So, V'shachanti, and I will dwell, I would like, in more precise translation, I would say, and I will be audible, and I will be sounding, something like this, like in their midst. Then, like, it perfectly, because to dwell, what does it mean to dwell? Like, how can somebody imagine that God dwells? But if you say that, like any living creature that like engage in some kind of life activities creates a sound of any kind. So we create a sound of like divine kind. Yeah, right, correct. Yeah, so yeah. So this concept also uh, exists in Hinduism too. It's called Nada Brahma. And actually, when I got exposed to this notion, that's what actually um, helped me to understand like what role this of God noise, like God sound, has to do with our culture. Yeah, so we create God's presence by making sound, by making God audible. Like, through Torah learning in yeshiva, and Torah learning in synagogue, through prayers, through brochas, through everything. Oh yeah, shochen ad, so like sound that sounds forever. Then like it goes very smooth with the rest of the book. We're talking about letters, right? And the letters, their sound, in essence. So it's like eternal sound. That goes very smooth. V'kadosh Shmo, and his name is like holy. So again, comes well with the sound notion, because like if we know his name, then we can recite it. Then we can by treating it as holy, by reciting it as fervor, we definitely create this Shekhinah, this presence of God. Marom b'kadoshu, but nevertheless, God is not the sound, right? He is much above the sound. So that's why Marom v'Kadosh Hu. So he is even higher and even more holy than sound of his name. So it's something to attune to when we hear God's name. All right? And then he created that. So when I guess that haGra will explain in length all these notions, but that's why let's just finish the translation. And he created his world with three books, and then he uses like word game, Sefer, Sfor, Vesipur. It's like the same root, but three different objects. Sefer is like the shape of letters, the font. Sfor is numerical value of letters, so math. All right. Vesipur is basically the phonics of letters and like actual sound. So it goes from shape to number to sound. Shape, number, sound. Yes. Yes. Correct. And like, so meaning is created, you know. God created the meaning, and then we can also create some meanings, yeah. But the basic, yeah, it's different than the name. What do you mean by that? That's right. It doesn't say about the names of the letter or anything. So then it's a question whether like these names that we have, no, that we have today, how authentic they are. So the letters are there, but names can be like, at least in Sefer Yetzirah we don't find anything about the names of the letters, as if they don't exist. They just this and the number. So basically, it's like with the elements, with all the elements of the letter, each letter, God creates different elements of the world. So like with the shape, He creates shapes. With the number, He creates the um, the amounts, right, of everything. And with the sound, He creates the vibrations and like the story of everything. We can say it this way. So, so we can talk about. Again, let me first go to haGra's commentary. Okay, so he says as following: "B'shloshim in 32." And then he says that number 32 is explained in the following Mishnah, and the following Mishnah says that there are like 10 sfirot and 22 letters. Okay? And then haGra does something very, very interesting. So he says that they are equal to הקו הסובב לאלכסון 10 ונפרק ל10 ו... So it's a length of a circle. He says that if the diameter is 10, um, yes, if the diameter is 10, then it's basic math. I mean, not that basic, but so how do we calculate the length of a circle, of a line of a circle? You know, so it's 2 pi r. So like if you take if you take 2 pi, like diameter equals 10, then 10 times pi will be 32.4 something, right? And we were talking about like the existence of something. So we know that there are 31 exist for sure, and then a part of number 32, right, also exists already. So we can relate it as 32. No, so that's what he wants to explain, the mathematical beauty of this book, first of all. So he says, like, if we take like 10 as a diameter, then we get the length of circle will be 32, approximately. And then this 32, right, is divided into two parts of 10 and 22, because the following Mishnah divides, also talks about like 3 mother letters and 2 and 7 double letters. So 3 plus 7 equals 10, right? Okay, so when you take 3 and 7 as diameter of a circle, you will get 10 and 22, approximately. It's a very important thing, circle, in Sefer Yetzirah. And considering that we go in a circle around the sun, and we live on a circle planet, and, you know, we go through circles of years and days and everything. So we live within circles. Why 15? Because 10, because it's 10 sferot. It's like basic, and 10 sferot is because 10 fingers. So like it goes there. All right. I mean, this is like the main point here is that we live in circles. Okay, so we're encircled with letters, because it's like, but it's much later he will explain everything. So he says further, Vehem be'adam stomim b'moch. And when we talk about the human being, so all these notions are like hidden in his brain, and the brain is called chokhmah, wisdom. And then they are divided in the spine, and they go through the whole entire body. So basically, when we're talking about nerves, right, and brain and everything, so he says something like In a brain, which is Chokhmah, everything is like hidden, but then it goes and manifests itself through the spine and through the nerves in all the body. And it's known that from then from them comes a feeling um, to all the organs of the body, meaning from the letters. All right, so whatever you feel, it comes from the power of the letters. I mean, from letters and 10 sphirot, because altogether 32 path of wisdom. So it's like, yes, yes. That's what he writes. I mean, maybe even sense. He writes that from them comes a sensation into all the organs. So probably more about sensations when we sense things. I mean, hear, see, smell, touch, whatever. It's we experience the power of this path of wisdom, letters and sphirot. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's basic idea of sound healing in Hebrew. Yeah, that's worth investigating it, like finding these sounds. It's important to find the sounds to heal the organs. והם בספירות החוכמה הקדומה להתפשט לחוכמה ומשם לחוכמה גדולה. So then, when we talk about like that, that what we were talking about, like human being, right? So the manifestation of this path of wisdom is through our sensations, through senses. Okay, with each organ of our body. And when we talk about sfirot, so now we're talking about sfirot. So they connect, called חוכמה קדומה, שמוח הסתימה, מתפשט לחוכמה, משם לחוכמה דזרנטין. So he says that like three different worlds are connected through their through the sfirot of chokhmah in each world. So we have the closest to us is Zeranpin, like microprosop, it's called in academic argot. And then probably he's talking about world of Atzilut. Or maybe he's talking about different words. Like, because like all the worlds have basically very similar structure, sometimes it's very hard to understand to which world a certain term relates. So Chokhmah Dezerampin is something that easier to understand. So it's closest world to us in Tzilut. So probably it goes like this. Mochastima, so like invisible brain, invisible mind, which is called the ancient wisdom. So Chokhmah Gduma, the ancient wisdom, or like the first Chokhmah, the very first state of being, which you can call Chokhmah, goes through all the worlds, straight to the world of Atzilut, goes to Chokhmah, that reflects all this path of wisdom, and from there it goes to Zeranpin. Okay, so basically, what he says that we can see that like focus becomes more and more like detailed. We still are like we can talk about Chokhmah on many different levels. Like we can talk about the first Chokhmah, this is something gigantic. Then we can come to Chokhmah, which is like not as big as the whole picture, but as like one of the main blocks of this picture. And then we can go and talk about Chokhmah within that block. And then we can go and talk about Chokhmah that inside, like the Chokhmah of that block, like 4 different layers, or 4 different levels of detailization. Okay? Okay, so it's basically very simple. If you picture for yourself, let's say, the solar system, right? Or like a galaxy. This is a big picture, then you see, and it goes in circle, right? Then you go into solar system, it goes in circle, right? Then you go to planet Earth, it also goes in circles, right? And then you look into the atoms of planet Earth, let's say, right? And you still see like electrons going around the nucleus, which is basically the same round movement, circle movement. Okay. So it also can be like, it's very tempting to say that here Vilna Gaon wanted to say that like basically like everything goes in circles, right? And like on many whatever level you look into it, but it goes in circles, and this is like the manifestation of Chokhmah, things that go in circles. So again, it's very tempting to say that he basically said that atoms also like look like small solar systems. Yeah, which would be very very brave to say that he basically said things that science was able to discover in like 200 years after that. And about galaxies too, I guess. But it could be because he definitely was talking about circles, and he was definitely talking about different levels of scale in Sphirot. And I mean, Arizal too sometimes talks about Sphirot as circles. So it's very tempting to say that he was able to say things that science revealed only many years after that. Okay, but it's a very good exercise in visualization. Take if you're familiar a little bit with the tree of life of Sphirot. Yes. Are you? Okay, so you know what it is like, right? More or less. More or less. And anyways, you know where to find it. So you can take the picture of it and like try to visualize, like finding the Sfirat Chokhmah, right? And try to go like 4 levels inside of it. I mean, you take Chokhmah as first level, and then like you visualize that the Chokhmah on the tree of Sfirot is also this kind of tree with its own Chokhmah, and you go inside that Chokhmah and find another Chokhmah, and then goes inside that Chokhmah and find another Chokhmah. So this is kind of, yeah, exercise for visualization. Not behind, they like becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, but they within. Or you can like picture them as spheres, like one within. I mean, some like you can play with it. It's definitely a vehicle, a tool to explore your imagination, your like ability to attune yourself to the notion of Sfirot. It's a great thing to do. Okay, and then when we talk about the names of God, Rabbi Nagan says there are 32 times the name Elohim is mentioned in the story of creation of the world. From Bereshit till the very end, till the Shabbat. So, name Elohim, we can find there 32 times. So we can see that this notion of 32 paths of wisdom is actually goes through many different objects in the world. There is person, there is like energetical structure of Sfirot, and there are like names of God. So names, they're like letters, they're like sound. Again, we come into sound, right? So we have sensations, we have senses, right? We have imagination, and we have sound. Okay, and then he says, but in that part which you read every Friday night, Vaychud Shamayim, and all the objects of the world were finished and completed, right? In the Shabbos day, there are 3 times that the name Elohim is mentioned there, and these 3 times correspond to 3 books which we were talking about at the end of the Mishnah. And why they're called Elohim, gods? Because the Fisherman Ganuz Gura De'atik. Now, because they contain the strength of the ancient. Okay, so ancient Atik is a certain Kabbalistic world. Yeah, and it's a crown of the world of Atzilut. Okay, so, and this crown actually has 10 Sfirot inside of it, right? So it has its own Gvura, strength. And this Gvura, the strength of the crown, is hidden in these 3 books. So basically, what is strength of the crown? Strength of the crown is very simple. Is a will of God that says that the things will be in a certain way and not other. You know, like in order something to be a certain shape, you need to be decisive. Say this will be this shape and not other. Correct? So this is strength, gura, judgment, and keser, like crown, is a will of God that wills the world into existence in a certain shape. So we are talking about these three books that we were talking about: shape, number, and sound, right? And like through these three books, the will of uh, the will of God and His like decision about how the world will look come into existence. What? Yeah, from Crown of Absolute. I mean, let's put like for now it's enough to say yes that this is the level from where the decisions are coming. It's much more complicated, but for our purposes now, it's all right. ולפיכך נקרא בוצינה דקרדניתא, and that's why it's called something like a candle of an axe, שבה מדד משחטה ועשה הכל כמו שכתוב. So the strength of crown was basically um, the measuring means by which God created the world. So he was like using these three books to bring everything into existence, like saying, okay, this kind of vibration is allowed in the world, and this kind of vibration is not allowed in this world. Which goes very good with the quantum physics, like different levels of energy are allowed and different levels of energy are not allowed. And also lights, it's like a certain length of wave also. So different lengths of wave makes different color. But everything is controlled from this place which is called Gura Datik, strength of crowns, and there are three names of Elohim that each one controls different. One controls shape, one controls number, and one controls sound. No. So 32. They control like sphirot and letters, but letters they are composed of three different, additional bonuses. I mean, um, which is shape, number, and sound. It's like something. And yeah, we can say that we need to dwell a little bit longer on the relation between these three elements of each letter, like Elohim, that controls these elements, and other Elohim that control the letters in general. So, and I can say that basically in each letter there are 4 times Elohim. That's interesting. So then 3 and 1 will be like also like space and time. Whether like this is something to think about, to meditate. It's like a koan. Do you know what's koan? So koan in Zen is a certain like saying, a certain question um, that is very puzzling. It helps us to understand the limitness of our logical thinking, the limits for our cognition. So this is also like I would say that a lot of things that are written in the books, they're like just raw material for us to explore and to think about and to try to understand. Vehen ba'olam, one moment. Yeah, I just wanted to finish the sentence. והן בעולם תחילתן ברוך ומתפרסים במים שהוא חוכמה מתפשטים בבב קצוות העולם. So, and also in the world, they start with the spirit, the roch, and then they continue into the water, and the water is chokhmah, and then they continue into 6 different dimensions of the world. Alright. So, you can also, when you come into contact with water, you can think about water as chokhmah, and you can think about the sensation of the wetness of the water, the temperature of the water, whatever. There's also like letters and sphirot that are acting in your brain, in your mind, like trying to connect these things. Listening to sound of the water also. It's cool things to do. All right. To chokhmah, yes. Because like water goes and especially when it's mighty water, it goes everywhere. You cannot stop it, like wisdom. All right. Yeah, start practicing. That's what can. Yeah, Chachma, 32 circles, many things. Your sensations, don't forget. Sound. All right. Yes. 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 All right. Very good. You too. Bye bye. Bye.